Hi, this is Trimble. This is my vlog reporting on the book reflection of Building the Bond of Attachment, Awakening Love in Deeply Traumatized Children. It's a book written by Daniel Hughes, and this vlog needs to be super long, around 10 to 15 minutes. So in order to keep myself on track, I'm gonna play myself interviewing myself by using the questions to organize the content. So, question number 1, tell me a little bit about the book author and his method. All right. Hughes, the therapist, proposes a method called dyadic developmental psychotherapy. Dyadic means two, between two persons. Why it's not called bilateral or bi-person, interactive, we'll talk about that later. For now, let's focus on his main ideas. In order to carry out the DDP method, you need to pay attention to use four things, to focus on four things in the parenting style. He summarized it as PACE, P standing for playfulness. You need to be really playing almost an equal friendly part by being playful. A stands for acceptance, very similar to Adler's Rogers, unconditional acceptance. C stands for curiosity. You are curious about the kid's inner world all the time, which is quite demanding as far as I can tell. E stands for empathy. In the book, empathy sometimes was accepted by the kid, sometimes not accepted by the kid. And we'll see how much a role empathy plays in this theory. All right, thank you for talking about the author. Now, the main character, Katie Harrison. Can you tell us about what she's like? All right, Katie is a deeply traumatized girl, and when she was born, her parents were not good parents, and they didn't know how to care for her, and they didn't respond to her needs. And she experienced violence and neglect, serious neglect. In terms of violence, she was beaten, she was thrown, and she was choked at times. And that's how and why she ended in the fostering system. So as a result of all those trauma events or experience, she became this little violent girl, very manipulative, trying to be independent, to be strong for herself. And she's super smart, as far as we can tell from the book's story. She was successfully manipulating the first three families, and she was almost getting her way in the fourth family until she couldn't. So as a person, I would say I don't like her, and I'll explain further later why I don't like her and why I like her. All right, so can you talk about the four fostering families? Yes. The first family was Ruth Daly and husband Ray. They were pretty much the traditional type of fostering family. They were warm, they were loving, but they basically have a system rewarding kids based on behaviors. They didn't quite stress the importance of fixing or building attachment, because that was a thing they assumed that was there. Their fostering didn't last long. After about 6 months, I had a summary table in my Word file, but I don't have it in front of me. The second family was Karen and Ken, who didn't have any kids, and they were very young, willing to be foster parents. They were more laid back permissive, and Katie was very quick on figuring out how to manipulate them, how to be in charge, be the person in charge, in power. Because being in charge, being in power was her coping mechanism of feeling safe. Of course, her manipulative way of interacting with this couple ended up being very stressful, and being young and inexperienced, Karen was a little bit tough on her. Katie said she tied her onto a chair when Katie didn't want to sit, and there were some scratches on her skin as well. Karen ended up owing up to those misdemeanors, and while Katie wanted to stay with them because they were easy to manipulate in the first place, the fostering system, the management system, ended up taking her out of that house and placed her into the third. The third house is by Susan Cummings and her husband, Richard. There is a pretty big turn here because in the first two families, the foster father was pretty much not in the picture. They may be supportive, but they had very limited interactions with Katie, as long as the book was describing. But this third father, Richard, he was really drawn into caring for Katie, and Katie quickly charmed him to like her. And the book even said, it described situations where the fostering father, Richard, favored Katie over the other foster kids who had been there for much longer than Katie. And when the other boy was crying, saying, "I have trauma too," and Richard defended Katie by saying, "She's just a little girl, you just need to be nice to her. If I see you lay your hand on her again, you'll be out of my house," which was pretty serious. And Katie was so successfully manipulating this household that Mr. and Mrs. Cummings, they ended up having more frequent frictions between the husband and wife. It wasn't a good sign. In the end, there was violence and security issues. So they decided to terminate the fostering placement, and she had to leave again. Fortunately for her, the fourth family, Jackie and Mark, being the therapist parents, they were able to fix the attachment issues, pretty much following their counselor's advice in the construct of PACE. So that's about the four families. Okay, so why do you think the fourth family worked while the first three didn't? So as far as I can tell, the most important reason was the author was trying to construct so that the behavioralist-based methods in the first three families were not as effective as the DDP in this situation. This situation means deeply traumatized children, because the attachment issue was the basis of everything. If like the first three families, when they focused on the outward behaviors by rewarding or encourages or confirmation, it doesn't change Katie. The attachment issue was not fixed, and Katie was cooperative in the beginning to just win them over and to gain a stance in the power play, while the fourth one was able to address the attachment issue more or less directly, thus being successful. But I, as a reader and a counselor in training, I don't really believe the author's illustration, because from observing the behaviors and actions between especially the foster family number 1, Ruth, and Jackie from number 4, there's not much difference. Ruth was loving and warm and provided structures as well. And Jackie, of course, having the structure, having very direct instructions, was also loving. Just that baseline method was different. I'm hardly convinced, because when a typical family raises kids, whether their own biological kids or foster kids, they don't have any theoretical training, and they don't need to be really cognizant of this theory versus that. Just by acting pretty much the same, I don't know, hard to say. All right, so coming back to the theory then, what do you think is important in terms of driving success in foster home number 4? All right, I want to talk about the word dyadic again. It means 2 persons between that one parent and the kid, between that one counselor and the kid, between 2 persons. In the first 2 families, when the 2-person situation wasn't a problem, because the father was pretty much there but not there for Katie in this case. And the third one, when Richard entered the picture, he destroyed that dyadic structure, and Katie quickly got a handle on manipulating that 3-person triangle, gaining power over relationships in that family and alienating the 2 other people. So in order to stay dyadic, we need the father figure, but not as a direct role, more or less as a supporting role, like in the 4th family. Jackie was the primary caregiver, where Mark, the husband, was providing support through Jackie. And when needed, he comes into the picture. That's just my understanding. Okay, so can you talk about the attachment? Was a theory, different types? Yes. The attachment theory was developed by John Bowlby in the 1950s in Britain. He's a British. And it was later expanded by Mary Ainsworth. So basically, in this construct, there are 4 types of attachments, relationships. The first, attachment types. The first, of course, the best, is secure. To be honest, I haven't experienced any 100% secure attachment person yet. And the next type is avoidant. When growing up with the emotionally unavailable caregiver, a kid will develop this type of attachment style. Such a kid will appear independent, but deeply they have anxiety issues in relationships as well. The next type is ambivalent, and this type of attachment kids will have, again, anxiety issues, fear of abandonment. The last type, which fits Katie very well, is disorganized, where when the kid experienced neglect and violence, he or she will grow confused, and they have a very high risk of trauma and identity. Another theory that we cannot unsee in the book is the psychosocial development stages. And we can clearly see Erik Erikson's work. And Katie was stuck in the first stage, where trust and mistrust was supposed to develop. She never had the ability to trust anyone because she never experienced proper care in that stage. All right. Then it seems to be very important to know what method fits raising a kid. But how would you know what type of method to use? That's the problem. The sad answer is probably we don't know. Fortunately, attachment building or shaping is a lifetime long learning process, and we still have a chance. Even as earlier I mentioned, I didn't like Katie because I see quite of myself in her, and I'm like her. I don't think I had a secure attachment style growing up. That's probably a generational trauma for kids my age in China, because almost all families were struggling with survival. The expectation of the kid is to be self-sufficient. So I don't see many kids getting much of attachment building. All right, and with that is my reflection of the book. In summary, I hope Katie's story was true and she was really recovering from this disorder. But deep in my heart, I just don't feel that's ever true, because a foster parent putting all her heart out to a foster kid, I don't even experience that as a biological kid. I don't think I believe it. All right, that's my reflection. Hopefully, it's not too far from what your understanding is, and we'll be discussing. Thanks. Bye.